Well, good morning again. Today, we're looking at our fourth part in our sermon series called ReMarkable. Today is the fourth chapter of the book of Mark, and I hope as you've been being blessed by this series, you've been following along and completing the chapter, because we don't have the time to go over the entire chapter for the sermon. But this morning, we're looking at the fourth chapter, so I encourage you at some point this week to finish reading the entirety of Mark chapter 4. How many of you are gardeners or farmers? It doesn't matter if flowers or vegetables, or if you're currently or have ever been, have any of you ever tended a garden before in your life? All right, look, that's great. A lot of you have dealt with seeds and plants and watering and sunshine and soil. That's awesome. Recently, my wife, Crystal, she started a garden at our home. She decided on the plants and the herbs, the vegetables that she wanted to grow, and she got the right seeds and planted them in the soil and waited and watched. And after a few days or maybe a week or so, I don't know, I'm not the gardener, the starting to poke out from the ground were these shoots, these blades of plants starting to spring to life out of the soil. And I think it's a common experience if you've ever been a gardener or a farmer before to see and have the joy of watching these plants come out of the ground, of these seeds that were so small when you planted them to come out and to provide flowers, the beauty of flowers or the nutrition of vegetables or whatever the case might be. It's an exciting time to watch these seeds sprout. Today in the fourth chapter of Mark, seeds are the recurring theme. Jesus talks a lot about seeds in this fourth chapter. Remarkable. This is our sermon series, and as I've mentioned before, it's called Remarkable because we're looking at the life and the teachings of Jesus, who is the most remarkable man to have ever lived on this earth. And it's remarkable to think that this amazing person, his life and his teachings were able to be condensed into 16 short chapters in this Gospel of Mark. And because it's all been condensed so significantly, there's no filler, there's no fluff. All the fat has been trimmed. And whenever you read through this Gospel of Mark, it's just always just these action-packed stories after action-packed stories. And we've seen that through the first 3 chapters of the book of Mark. But we come to the fourth chapter, and finally Mark kind of takes his foot off the pedal just for a little bit to kind of get into some of the things that Jesus taught. Most of the book of Mark is all about the things that Jesus did, but he takes a little breather here in Mark chapter 4 to tell about some of the things that Jesus taught. I don't know if he just thought that the readers needed to catch their breath after all of the action up to this point, or maybe he realized that by now the readers are aware of all of Jesus' power so that we're more open to hear his teachings. But whatever the case is, here in Mark chapter 4, we get an insight into some of the things that Jesus taught. And in this chapter particularly, he talks a lot about seeds. And we're not going to get into all of the parables or all of the teachings. We're only going to look at one, actually probably the shortest parable in Mark chapter 4 that has to do with seeds today. Because we have a lot of other things going on, just like the book of Mark. Our service today is packed full of a lot of great stuff, a lot of great VBS stuff. And so we don't have too much time, but as we've learned this week, following Jesus is important because he is the light of the world, and that's what this parable is about. It's about following Jesus and the importance of following him. Mark chapter 4, verse 26 and 27. It says, "Then Jesus said, 'This is what the kingdom of God is like. A man scatters his seed on the ground. Night and day, whether he sleeps or gets up, the seed sprouts and grows, though he does not know how. By itself, the earth produces grain. First the plant grows, then the head, and then all the grain in the head. When the grain is ready, the farmer cuts it, because this is the harvest time. This parable, just 4 relatively short verses long. And yet, because of the nature of the book of Mark, how everything really is packed full of meaning and importance, there are several important things to note from this short parable. The first remarkable point this morning is, as followers of Christ, we can't just sit around and be lazy. This is going through the first part of this parable when Jesus talks about the farmer or the gardener that scatters the seed on the ground. It requires action. This is something the farmer has to do. The farmer can't just say, oh, you know what, it's too hot. Oh, you know what, I'm too tired. Oh, you know what, I'm too hungry. Whenever it comes time to plant the seeds, right? I guess a farmer could be lazy or a gardener could be lazy, but then there'll be no vegetables to eat or no flowers to enjoy. A farmer can't just be lazy and just sit around. The same thing goes for us as Christians. We can't just sit around and say, you know what, I'm fine here in my pew. It's comfortable, it's safe. I don't really want to do much of anything. Pastor, you're just lucky I showed up on Sabbath morning. This is not what we're called to do as Christians. We're called to get out. We have to get out. We have to be active. We have to do things, just like the farmer, just like the gardeners. If we just sit here and say, I'm just going to sit in this pew and take it easy, we can't expect for the kingdom of God to grow just by random people coming in off the street. Yeah, that happens from time to time, just like from time to time a tree grows or a plant grows without any human help or assistance. But can you imagine if the farmers just said, you know what, I'm just going to sit here in my lounge or on my couch in the air conditioning and let nature take its course? Pretty soon our supermarkets would be empty, right? There would be no produce to enjoy. As followers of Christ, we can't just sit around and be lazy. The second remarkable point from this parable is that as followers of Christ, we have to be patient and trusting. Night and day, whether he sleeps or gets up, the seed sprouts and grows. Though he does not know how, by itself, the earth produces grain. The farmer is not in control. The farmer only has to be patient after the seed has been planted and wait. It's interesting. I'll give you a quick Greek lesson here. I know this is what you've been looking forward to, right? The last verse there, by itself, the earth produces grain. That word, the Greek word for by itself, is a very difficult word that you've never heard before. Automate. No, you've heard it before, right? Automatic, automate, right? Now you can go home and say, hey, I already know Greek. I'm almost as good as the pastor, right? Better than the pastor. Automate. The earth produces the grain automatically. And there's nothing that the farmer can do to hurry the process up. We've grown a lot in our understanding since the time of Jesus of what it takes to be better gardeners or be better farmers. We understand probably a bit better of the right kinds of soil with the chemistry and whatnot, and the right amount of sunlight that the seeds need, and the right amount of water that is necessary. But still, even with all of our advances, we still can't really hit the fast forward button on growing seeds. We still have to put them in the ground, and we still have to wait and be patient for the earth to do its thing, for the shoot to come up out of the ground. And we can't force it to happen. We can't look at the seed and say, all right, sprout now. It's not going to work, right? We have to patiently wait. And we have to hope that something's going to sprout, because we're not in control. We simply have to be patient and wait for the sprouts to come. And the same thing goes with us as Christians. We can't force the kingdom of God to sprout sooner. We just have to be patient. Sometimes it's hard for us. We wonder, why doesn't the kingdom of God reveal itself sooner in the lives of my children or in the lives of my friends or in the lives of my neighbors? But we really just have to wait patiently as long as those seeds have been planted. We have to believe and put our trust that God is at work in that soil of people's hearts and that He is in control, because simply we are not. We, as followers of Christ, simply have to be patient and trusting. Our third and final remarkable point from this parable is that as followers of Christ, we need to have good timing. We need to have good timing because, as Jesus says here in the last two verses, first the plant grows, then the head, and then all of the grain, and then when it's ready, then the harvest comes. If you try to harvest a crop early, it's ruined. You're not going to be able to get the nutrition or the beauty or whatever you need from it if you harvest it too early. If you harvest it too late, it's going to be ruined again. You've heard that expression, it's rotted on the vine. It can be destroyed by you not harvesting it soon enough. And that's why to have a good harvest, you have to have good timing. The same thing goes with us as Christians. We cannot force someone to join the kingdom of God when they're not ready. We might want them to, we might beg them to, but we can't force them to, and neither does God. It only can happen when the time is right. In the same way, we cannot hold people back when they are ready. We should not put up a lot of restrictions and keep people out when they are ready to become part of the kingdom of God. As followers of Christ, we need to have good timing. So what does this have to do with VBS, with Vacation Bible School? Well, I believe that VBS is probably the best opportunity that we have to plant seeds. As kids come through our program, whether they're little kids in preschool or they're elementary school kids or even some of our own crew leaders, when they come, they are exposed to the kingdom of God. And while that growth might not happen instantaneously, sometimes those seeds get taken home and they get shared with mom and dad, or brother and sister, or friend down the block. And as they've come and been a part of our Vacation Bible School, and those seeds have been planted, we can hope and we can trust and we can pray that one day, just like those shoots come out from the ground, one day the kingdom of God is going to come out in the lives of the children of those that have been involved with Vacation Bible School. Cave Quest, following Jesus, the light of the world. This is really what it's all about. Following Jesus. Planting seeds, watching them grow, and harvesting them. That's what it means to be a part of the kingdom of God. That's what it means to follow Jesus, to follow His light along the path to heaven. We need to follow Jesus, who is the light of the world.